March 19, 2024, and it's about 9:30 p.m. I just watched the most bizarre movie. I just finished watching Porky's 2 the next day in 1983. Oh my gosh. The last time I ever watched it was about 1990. Wow. I just want to touch on Porky's 2 the next day briefly. I don't know what the movie was about. It's one of those movies where it has a lot of plot lines. Maybe I'm missing something. A bunch of college kids, right, freshman kids. That system has always confused me because in Sydney, Australia, we don't have that system, and so for a lot of us, it's very confusing. Now, Porky's the bunch of college kids, bunch of horny college kids who are still trying to figure themselves out. I'm entertained by it. If I can, look, I haven't seen this movie in the 10, 20, 30, 34 years. Have not seen him in 34 years. I used to watch Porky's when it was on television, and there was a lot of cuts made to it. And then I think I rented out the VHS after high school, and I kind of enjoyed it. But when high school finished, I think a couple of years later, Dazed and Confused came out, and Dazed and Confused was my standard. So Pee-wee gets his cherry popped by, man, this movie was nuts. Cackeye Hunter. Oh, right, okay, yeah. So she played Wendy Williams. So there is somewhat of a plot line. There is a plot line, and what happens is that Pee-wee, who was played by Dan Monahan, there is this plot line. There's things going on. Honestly, it went over my head. It really went over my head. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what they're doing. It ends up that Dan Monahan, that Pee-wee and Wendy Williams have a moment together. They get to talk privately together, and Wendy Williams explains things, her truth, to Pee-wee. Okay, and so there's a bit of understanding there. Like it's very, very helpful, that part. And then there's a school play. There's a play, and there's the Ku Klux Klan, and there's an Indian guy, and there's a Jewish guy, and there's different statements being made, and there's a lot of, most of the movie is like, huh? What is going on here? Because it don't really explain. I might have to watch this movie twice. I don't know if I can sit through it again. I want to talk about Porky's. I really want to talk about Porky's, because I watched Porky's last night. 1981, and I remember seeing this as an adolescent, and so all these guys in the movie were older than me when I first saw it, so I sort of looked up to them in a way. I was kind of, I don't know, I do know, well, I was looking for a bit of guidance movie-wise, and I was looking for characters in movies that could give me sort of advice at that young age. I hadn't found my footing yet, and so when I watched these movies, these guys were older than me, and I was like, oh, is that the way it is? Is that how it is? And looking back at this movie now, it's the way it was then, but no. Look, this Porky's 2 thing is just gone. But Porky's, right. A few things to say. About a bunch of college students who all know each other, and what happens is they go to Porky's Tavern, which is it crosses the state line, it crosses the county line, so they're in a different county, actually played by it's actually quite interesting to hear the lingo of the time. If it gets set aside the acting, which is not necessarily too great, but I've just totally set that aside because I'm watching it as a period piece, and I'm getting part anxiety about it, but yet there's entertainment value in there. The cast was quite interesting, actually. They're kind of fascinating, they're kind of interesting. It gave me the wobblies at times. It felt like going home in a weird sense, because the last time I'd seen these movies was approximately 1989 or 1990. Porky's always, and going to the video store to rent out Porky's always felt rebellious, very rebellious. And they go to Porky's nightclub. They want to get some girls, and they demand to see some girls, right? They pay Porky about $150, and they get what? He says you can have three. He says you can have 3 girls for half an hour for $150, and they start complaining about that. He said you can take it or leave it. You can back off out of my joint. Now, when Porky's was on television, it was always, I think it was on as a later movie, and it was always edited. And so when I did finally see it on, well, I can't remember what I thought about it back then. I remember one part where the guy, which guy is he? I think it's this guy, Mickey, Roger Wilson, Mickey. Okay, there's a huge thing here, a really big thing in the movie, which easily I overlooked years ago because you just see him as a bit of a hero years ago. Mickey guy, the Porky sends him into this dark room and then pulls the lever and they all go into the water, and then he kindly, politely says to, you know what it was, back in the day, I guess I kind of thought of Porky as the enemy, and when I rewatched, as I was watching Porky last night, I did not see Porky as the enemy. I mean, I didn't see him as a bad guy at all. I mean, it's his joint, it's his saloon with his people. These college kids are visitors, and he dumped them in the water like, you know, get out of here, don't cause me trouble, you know. He takes their few bucks, and all of them take it with a grain of salt except one guy. One guy, Mickey, doesn't take it with a grain of salt. And the sheriff bangs their car up, and says to Porky, what do you want to do with these guys? And Porky says, let them go. I'm going to let them go. And so he lets them go, but there's one guy who's not happy about the affair at all, and he wants revenge. He wants to get his own back, and his brother is the sheriff. Well, I got that impression. His brother is the sheriff, and he's and he says, just go home, sleep it off, don't be a hothead, just go home. And what happens is, these guys, this is a bunch of friends, about 6 friends, right? So they start getting on with their own thing. They pretty much forget about this Porky guy, except this one guy, Mickey, who just won't leave it alone. He decides not to leave it alone. At the end of the movie, he comes in and he says, I used my face to break his fist, to break his hand. And it's like, and it took me a moment to work out what he meant, and I'm like, wow, because that kind of had impact on me when I saw it when I was about 15. Did I see him as the hero? Not entirely. I just saw it as a situation, a bit of a messy situation. Now, I'm just going to, so we get through the paces of this movie. I got through the paces of this movie, and at the end I'm thinking, this guy's a sociopath. He keeps going back for more. Blood on him every time he comes back. His friends aren't backing him up. And I'm like, this guy's a sociopath. Like, he's just going back for trouble. I mean, Porky's not. I don't know how many of you guys see Porky as the enemy. I don't see Porky as the enemy. Porky is running a business. These kids are underage. Porky doesn't want them in his saloon. So he actually politely kicks them out. He does take their money. He does take the money. He does. He's just saying, don't fuck with me, don't come over to my, it's his territory, it's Porky's territory. Porky hasn't done anything wrong at all. And it didn't take me too long to figure this out. This one guy, he just keeps going back for more. And I'm like, geez, you're a glutton for punishment. Now, the movie does deal with abuse as well, because there's a guy in there. This movie, I'll say racial tensions. Because it involves a Jewish guy, and it involves let me get this right. Well, but it does involve that. This guy, these two guys have a fight, and the Jewish guy beats this other guy. Like he wins. He is victorious in the situation, and what it is, this movie deals with abuse, because the father comes along and he is very rough to his son, very rough to his son. And we see at the end of the movie, where the son does confront the father and says, "You're not going to do this to me anymore," because the father is very abusive to the son. I found the characters. Oh, the girl from Sex and the City, she's in this. This movie's it's a goof, but it also talks about certain issues. Ball Bricker, Nancy Parsons. She's kind of funny in it. She's kind of funny. Kim Cattrall. Kim Cattrall is in it, and she has a sexuality about her, a big sexuality about her. I'm looking at this movie the whole time and thinking, I'm just sitting back and I'm watching it, and I'm like, I'm having a part anxiety. I'm like, I don't have to take this seriously. It's not serious. Some of the scenes I simply did, but I only remembered one or two of the scenes. Look, I prefer Dazed and Confused. I prefer Dazed and Confused because Dazed and Confused came out as I was coming of age, just as I come of age. I felt a bit of anxiety. I felt partly entertained by it. I felt it was, I think, mostly just being themselves. I mean, the acting isn't that. It's not that great. It's not terrible. It is what it is. Just a bunch of teenagers, or I think they were all in their very early 20s by that point. So these are probably all 22, 23-year-olds. And when I was watching it, I was 15 when I was first watching it. And it's just college kids goofing off, playing pranks on one another, having run-ins with the law, having run-ins with the school teachers and the local authorities, and it's a bit of it's a real goof. It's just I suppose you could call it oddball comedy. All that stuff that came out in the very early 80s wasn't nostalgic to go back to, but it was. I did appreciate it. It was fun. I did get through it. I liked Kim Cattrall. Just get her up in the gym, upstairs. I liked Kim Cattrall, and there were some very particular moments where I thought, what was the director's intention at the time? Was he going for a completely slapstick thing when you have that woman ball bricker, and those fellas, the gym teachers, are in the background? They're trying not to burst out laughing, but in the end they just simply are not hiding it anymore. You've got the principal who is making some certain suggestions, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Blazing Saddles. I'm going to look up who directed this. I haven't seen Blazing Saddles in many years. Directed by Bob Clark. think that as a teen, when I was watching this as a teenager, it was a gas. It was a hoot. When I saw this on VHS, I definitely would have went to Bogey's Video at Campsie and rented it out by myself, because renting videos out initially was a family affair, but then when I left high school, the year after I left high school, I just started going down and renting movies by myself, and the people who worked at Bogey's Video got used to me doing that, because I went on my big movie adventure. So Porky's didn't have much of an impact on me back then, because I just simply did not return to it through the years. I didn't go back to it. I really liked Dazed and Confused, had a big impact on me. I have actually watched that. I actually watched Dazed and Confused about 6 weeks ago. I'm going to watch it again. I watched it through the computer, but I think I'm going to put the DVD in this time and put it on the headphones. Dazed and Confused is a big one, and also they had the Dazed and Confused script reading reunion. But I digress. I thought that Porky had a lot of character about him. When I originally saw this movie, I think I wanted them to get their revenge on Porky. I haven't quite got to that yet. But watching it last night, I felt that was unnecessary for them to get for what they did to Porky. At the end, they decide to get revenge. I don't think, that's what I want to talk about. Seeing it last night, I don't think that Porky's deserved to have his business destroyed and brought to the ground. I think that was unnecessary. I really think that would be because one of their friends gets upset, and the gym teacher said that he had a run-in with Porky's a few years back now. He had a scar on his head. Okay. And the sheriff, I thought he was quite the sheriff from this side of the county. The guy's brother, the sheriff, the one who said just go home. Now, blowing Porky's business up, I think that was unnecessary, because they were going into his territory. He sent them away with a light warning. He's like, you're underage, don't fuck around here, get lost, right? That guy's brother, the sheriff, I thought that was a bit out of character for him, because they come back this time. Porky's come back. Porky's come back with the sheriffs, and that sheriff guy from this side of the fence, he decides to shoot their car, to shoot the silver medallion. I actually thought that was unnecessary. They didn't, oh, okay, well, where's the story then? What are they going to do for a story then? And if this happened in real life, then fair enough, okay? They're just they're translating that. I thought that the father who was mistreating his son, being abusive to his son, and the son stood up to the father. I thought that was. I liked the moment where the two guys who initially had the fight at the beginning of the movie, toward the end, they both get in the car and having a conversation. The girls in the movie, I thought they were. I thought they were interesting. I thought they were very kind of interesting. All had a bit of a sexual energy about them. Kim Cattrall mostly. I just watched Porky's 2 tonight, the next day. My goodness, I mean, going back into that world is quite strange, because it gives me, some of it gives me the heebie-jeebies, some of it gives me anxiety, because I'm a lot older now than these characters when they made it, and I was younger than them when I first watched it. And Porky's 2 I thought it was very difficult to understand. My goodness, what was going on with that? I greatly enjoyed the restaurant. I ended up, the restaurant scene at the end is so bizarre and yet entertaining. And suddenly, that girl comes out of her, well, not out of her shell. She obviously, she's an actress, but she starts being this sort of almost French woman. Kakai Hunter, she starts being this. Where the fountain is, the rest of Miami, where they go to Miami, it's bizarre. I'm not saying this in a negative way. But I know how much you like to hear me keep talking. I was going to say, I kept going with this movie. I kept going with it because anything that will keep me there, anything that will keep me there. And there was a few things that were keeping me going with this movie. It wasn't not a terrible movie. It's quite. I thought it was quite an entertaining movie. It just gets weird. It actually gets quite eccentric, and I'm completely okay with that. I like that sort of stuff. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. Any plot line that was happening, I have no idea about it. I'm just watching it now. I'm just like, anything that happens, I'm like, okay, I don't know how that's connected to that, or that's connected to that. I have some sort of rough idea of what's going on here, but really I don't know. I think I enjoyed the first movie more, and then I got a bit more entertainment out of it. Porky's 2 the next day left me feeling a bit exhausted. Found the characters to be tolerable to interesting, tolerable and interesting. Concluded. Right, thank you for watching. Right, so I purchased this a few months back. I'm thinking about watching Porky's Revenge tonight. Porky's 2 the next day was bizarre. Cacti Hunter. Cacti Hunter, what happens is she plays this, she's not extroverted or over the top. She's a standard girl of high school in middle America, in an American high school. She plays a fairly standard character. I wouldn't really say she was conservative. I'd say she is outspoken. She's a bubbly personality. But what happens at the end? She turns into this different hyper personality. I mean, I know that she's putting on an act. She's playing part of a character. She's in this weird yet highly entertaining scene, but she's putting on this. She goes pop, and she it's almost like she jumps ages. Like she jumps from being 17 to pretending to be this 26-year-old woman, and it's a great performance, but it kind of doesn't fit in with it. It's like, where did this come from? Like, where did this come from? This is not really a part of her personality. I mean, it's well done, but it's like kind of weird. It's amusing, it's funny, and there's a lot of testosterone involved in that movie. And I'm almost tempted to watch part 2 again, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. So, yes, Midnight Charlie Man. It's March 20, 2024. Thanks for watching. So, I conceded. I was going to watch Porky's Revenge, and instead I decided to watch Porky's 2 the next day. I watched it again. I thought, I'm going to understand this movie. I'm going to do my best to understand it. And I was focused carefully on it, and realised it wasn't really wasn't my issue. It is hodgepodge. It's sort of all over the place, and I'm not too sure what was going on at the time. Maybe it was just that level of comedy that they were looking for. I am not entirely sure. I do greatly appreciate. I grew up with 80s comedy. I grew up with 70s comedy. But 80s comedy, I do really like 80s comedy. I think it's quite fun to watch back. It's quite entertaining. It keeps me enthralled. What's weird is that Pee-wee is always complaining to his friends he wants to get laid, he's going to get laid. And they get him laid. Cacti Hunter goes with him. But then the next day, suddenly he says, hey, they said, so how does it feel to get laid? And he's like, oh, yeah, and it's like, I've got a whole harem of women. And it's like, but you don't. And he says, so I can hook you up with one of my harem. It's weird. It's weird. Cacti Hunter and Pee-wee talk in this private. They have some private time later in the day. This movie is extremely disjointed, and I'm paying close attention to it. I'm paying real close attention to it, and also the part where that's not fading, I hope. The part where Pee-wee's mum goes to the principal and have that Shakespeare and Bible thing, and his mum is there grinning, smiling, and like, the whole thing's weird. The whole thing's disjointed. She's supposed to be fighting for her rights to keep the play going because it's being trying to be halted for quite ridiculous reasons. The reasons oh, this is fading rapidly. Oh my gosh, I thought it was all fully things. What was I going to say was, it gets a bit ridiculous. The whole thing's a weird fiasco, and then it's entertaining though, if you can set aside those things. I'm gonna have to. I better go upstairs. I've got one recharging upstairs. I'm gonna go upstairs and get it. It's all over the place. It's completely disjointed, yet it's funny, and it works if you can just take it entertainment value. And this is an 80s movie. Then I watched Porky's Revenge. Porky's Revenge. Yeah. Look. Still a bit hooked on the fact that Kakai Hunter and Pee-wee are kind of supposed to be together, yet they're not. They're just buddies who had a liaison once. And Porky's Revenge. Now, with this movie, oh my goodness. Well, first of all, that scene where they're at the grandma's house and they got the camera up. I thought that was actually nice how Bricker got reunited with her lost friend, lover, intimate partner. I thought that was quite nice how that happened. Look, the script was a bit all over the place, yet it was Porky's Revenge. Porky's Revenge, I thought it was, I was entertained by it. I was. But geez, the scripting and the scenarios, they jump from one thing to another. This one was somewhat more understandable though, somewhat more, I was able to follow this one a lot better. Fun. Porky's Revenge must have been shown really late at night and must have been edited by the TV station, because I don't remember anything about it. I would have liked director's commentary. I would have liked behind the scenes, but this is no thrills. This is no thrills basic, collection. Back in those days, the only place you could see back in those days was at the cinema. Porky's, yes, entertaining. Porky's the next day, very complicated, and had to focus again on it. And Porky's Revenge, I found to be, it was entertaining. I found it to be entertaining. But boy, yeah, they play some pretty wild pranks on each other. They do, and there was a couple of times when the boys are in that teacher's apartment, and they're in that teacher's apartment, right? And they're in that teacher's apartment, and they're popping. Their head comes up from behind the couch, and don't tell me that the teacher didn't see that when they did that. I mean, come on. But anyway, okay, not a classic. How did it stand the test of time? I don't think it stood the test of time that well, yet fun to watch, fun to look back on. The acting is reasonable. It's not terrible. And it's weird because Pee-wee thinks of Kakai Hunter as his girl, yet she's being intimate with Tommy. By the third movie, they're not even really acting like a couple. They're just buddies of sorts. It is a bit all over the place, yet entertaining. Okay, Midnight Tiny Man. Patrick, and thanks for watching.